right, Depesh, what's up, brother? So, I love having people like good friends of mine back on this show, and if I could do it, like this is the ideal way I do it is just have a handful of people that are friends of mine that I just talk to on a regular basis, instead of constantly bringing in new people, unless they're new friends, right? Because it's it's a lot easier, and I feel like more rewarding, more fun to talk to people they have good energy with, and it's a natural conversation as opposed to I feel like what a lot of podcasts are, where it's like you're just trying to get all these guests, and it's kind of awkward, right? It's like I gotta have all these pre-scripted questions because I don't know anything about this person. I don't know what they do, and so I got to go through this formulaic thing. And sometimes you get people who just aren't very talkative, and you're pulling teeth to get a 1 minute answer. So I'm glad to have you back on, man, and I hope you have on many, many, many times in the future.
Absolutely. And we're in a weird place right now where we can't actually go to events and meet new people, so that makes it even tougher as well.
Yeah, it's a weird time to be in, where it's just your networking has dramatically shrunk, and your ability to have speak on stages, speak at masterminds, all of that has become really challenging. And at the end of the day, like 2020 is it was just a really shitty year. Like it was just a terrible year for everybody. And in 2021, obviously, it's debatable how good of a start we're off to this year. I think it's hopefully things get a little better. There's so many places that we can start this convo, and there's so many things that I want to talk to you about, from like personal stuff, just how having one child who's now in the other room just babbling to himself relentlessly, how you have 5 kids and somehow are still I don't. Let's start there, because I don't understand how, and like Van is another one who's just like has a litter of kids, and as having one child, everyone says it gets easier, right? Or just you get used to it, everything gets a little better, but like how do you do it, right? How are you standing in front of me right now talking and have any energy to actually do work with that many kids?
So I'll answer that question, but the other way I'd kind of push that back is, how do you grow a team? Like, you grow a team through setting some kind of processes, some boundaries, ways of working, things like that. I honestly feel that my experience in developing teams and managing teams has helped me to manage my own personal team, which is my kids, right? So when we first had our kid, we were making everything up. We were being told by parents and in-laws, with all the best of intentions, what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. And it's stressful. Let's be honest. It's your first child. You're still trying to get used to it. You're not used to not having sleep at night and having to deal with so many things that are going on. But the thing is, you do learn to adapt. So the first kid, for want of a better way of putting it, is practice. Like, because you're getting used to everything. By the time that second kid comes, you realize there's some certain shortcuts you can take, and some certain things you don't need to do. So, for example, when it comes to sterilizing the baby's bottle, with the first kid, we'd do it every single time. We'd do it completely properly and all that kind of stuff. By the time the second kid comes in, you're doing sterilization, but you might also just put it in the dishwasher. And it's like, yeah, all right, I know it's all right, but I'm also busy. And, you develop those processes over time. Then I think, when you so we've got 5 kids, and there's a 12-year age gap between the eldest and the youngest. We're now at a stage where the older 3 look after themselves. So it's not so much that they need parent time, but they just need guidelines and boundaries, just like your team would inside your business. And you let them, KPIs and OKRs, you set their goals and set them free within that. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is, and me and Shalina, my other half, joke about this, is whilst I'm the CEO of the business, she's CEO of our house, and she has house staff. We wouldn't be able to do it without that. So whether it's a cleaner, a nanny, or whatever else, she's got her own mini team. So whilst we're trying to manage the 5 kids, there are some people helping out as well. So we wouldn't be able to do that without them. For example, I think the first time we met face-to-face was Bangkok, for example,
Yep.
Or at least that's the last time we met. And that wouldn't have been possible without my in-laws looking after the kids and, the nanny and stuff being around. because you can't take, 3, 4 kids with you when you're traveling around doing talks and stuff like that. We wouldn't have had that experience. So having a team behind you makes such a huge difference. If it's 5 kids and you don't have that team, then we wouldn't be in the situation we are, where me and my wife work in the business as well as obviously manage things at home. If we didn't have the house staff and stuff, there's no way she'd be able to help me in the business and be able to split the tasks and stuff. So I think the first part is you do learn to adapt. If you told me even after we had our second child that you're going to have 5, I would have laughed and probably cried at the same time. But now it's, and I mentioned this in the pre part of the call. Baby number 5 wasn't kind of expected and stuff, but as soon as you see that face and you see the baby and everything they're going through, it's such a delight. And I don't know if it makes a difference if you have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. They're your flesh and blood. At the end of the day, you'd do anything for them, whether it's 1 kid or 4 or 5. The same love, amazingly, is spread between everyone. It's just the way things are done. So, that just helps everything as well, because, people talk about business. Why do you do what you do? People have a why. Some people just want more money to have all the luxuries they never had. Some people want more time back, so they create more money. But with your kids, it gives you a different why. And I'm sure you've had these conversations yourself with Larissa. When you have that kid and you go from the planning and then pregnancy and then the kid comes along, it changes things. It really does. And I think for the better as well.
Yeah, it is an amazing thing that you have all these feelings leading up to it of what it's going to be like, and it's going to be real. But once it becomes real, that minute it is like a flip switch. At least for dads, I think it's different for the moms because they're physically dealing with the whole for 9 months. But it is an amazing thing. Your priorities change really dramatically, really quickly. Your goals change. The way you look at money changes. And for me, it's and I'm sure it's this way for you. It's like I care a lot more about having free time than I do about making money right now. And the two go hand in hand, because obviously the more money you make, the more the more flexibility you have to be free in a sense. But you get to the point where it's like you have enough coming in. And anything beyond that is, great. But if it means you got to sacrifice spending time here, that becomes a much easier decision to make as as a dad, an entrepreneur, husband. And that's kind of the point that I'm at. And it's an amazing thing to experience, but it's also a challenging thing because you don't have the luxury of being a 9-to-5 employee, right? I think when you're an employee, you have the luxury of being able to totally turn things off, right? Like you don't physically you're gone, but also mentally you're checked out. It's 5 p.m. on Friday. I'm checked out until Monday morning. And even with us, it's like you can have that belief that time is more valuable, freedom's more valuable, but turning your brain off, turning that switch off to stop thinking about things, that's really hard. Putting the phone away is really hard. And those are things that I've been struggling with, consciously having to do that. I'm curious if it gets, for you, if it's gotten easier the longer you've had kids, or if it's kind of steadily been that balance, that kind of balancing act has consistently been a challenge. Is there a point where it kind of gets better, easier, or you just learn to deal with it, or kind of where that stands?
So I'll be honest, up until we had our last child, I don't think I'd balanced my time well at all, because when I look back at the younger two in particular, I was working so much that I don't remember enough time with them. So, going back a decade, I was in corporate. I'd leave the home at 7:30 in the morning. So the kids are barely awake. I'd come home at 7:30 in the evening. So they're ready for bed. And when you do that week after week and month after month, and you look back at those pictures and those videos and think, I was there, but I wasn't present. There's a real big difference between being switched off and being 100% present for your family, and actually just being partly there, but your mind's on your phone and you're checking your phone and stuff like that. So it took me, unfortunately, a few children to figure that one out. And all I can do is pass that knowledge on and say, you have to get that right as soon as you can. So for example, right now, we have a sacred time between 5 and 8 in the evening. So I'm not to have any meetings, leave the phone off, all that kind of stuff. So I'm dedicated for the kids. So we have dinner together. I'll prep them for bed, showers, whatever. Then I'll switch back on at 8 o'clock. So I'll catch up on whatever I need to do. And that alone makes a big difference. Also on the weekends, I'll try and either have like one full day with the family and kids, if not a day and a half, but ensuring I do consciously make that time, because honestly, the kids grow so fast. And at the end of the day, money-making opportunities, they're always going to stay there. But your kids, where they are right now, that's not going to be there forever. And sooner or later, you go to where I am, and our eldest is now a teenager, and you think, wow, where did that time go? And it really does. It's quite upsetting to look back and think, I didn't spend enough time with you when you were younger, because I felt like, career and growth and stuff like that would pay back later on, but it doesn't. You really need to balance that time out.
Are you, this is like a more kind of metaphysical, super high level, like getting deep question, but like with everything going on, because I asked this because I've been thinking a lot about this, like with everything going on in the last year, it's haven't started this year, are you optimistic about like your kids, like my kids, like future, right? In the sense of like that they're going to have because that's like every parent's dream, right? And a goal is like that your kids have a better life than you do. I'll rephrase it. It's like, what are your thoughts about the future? Like
Sure.
with kind of where everything's at right now. And I know there's a ton of ways that can go, and there's a ton of, things in life that can mean, whether it's technology, whether it's politics, and all that stuff, but just at a high level, and then we can dive in.
Absolutely. So, there's a few different dimensions for me. Number one is letting the kids develop in the way they want, what's natural for them. For example, my son is a bit of a nerd, but he's intelligent and he loves science and space and body and stuff like that. He's not a sports person. I was. So we don't share a passion for soccer, for example. My daughter, she loves soccer, but she's a super creative mind. Like, she's a totally right-brained mind, and she doesn't like English. She doesn't like maths and stuff like that. And I'm a believer in taking them through school and learning from experiences. Like, I won't say I don't care about their grades, but that's not the thing that I look for. It's like, if they come back and say, I got 60% in this test, I'm like, well, how did it go? How did you feel? What do you think you got wrong and stuff like that? It's not like, oh, well, you need to get 90% next time. I don't care, because I don't really believe in the school system. So that's a whole different thing. But I want them to experience life. I'm also letting them take their path into entrepreneurship. So I know some parents will try and focus in on, if they're entrepreneurs, the kids should learn and stuff like that. My kids will sometimes come in the office when I'm in meetings and stuff. They're listening in, and they're listening to Facebook and Shopify. And my eldest, a few years ago, he was interested in fidget spinners. And, he was looking to buy a few for his friends. And I showed him AliExpress. I said, this is how much it actually costs. This is how you set up a store and people sell it for a profit. And this is kind of what happens. And he was like fascinated. And he goes, could I buy it from AliExpress and sell it to my friends at school? I said, yeah, absolutely. Like, that's the same thing. It's just online, offline doesn't matter. But I want them to have the spark, so that when they go through their kind of early life and into their teens and late teens, they're thinking about what they want to do in their career, whether that's entrepreneurship or going down the education path, becoming a doctor, which is fine. Where that future goes, I have no idea, like what life's going to be like in 10 years time, 15, 20. But I want to give them as many experiences as possible to give them a range of options. So, you can follow mum and dad into running your own business. You could do this online marketing stuff. You could go and, like, my eldest daughter, she wants to become an au pair in Australia. So be it. If that's what you want to do, you want to go and explore. I never got to do that. I'd love for my kids to do that if they want. So there's that part of it. What that future life looks like, where I want to help them the most, is where possible that money isn't the influencer behind what they decide to do. So that by the time they're 18 or 21, they get access to funds that they don't need to make decisions that they can't do X, Y, Z because they don't have the money. I want them to have that choice where, if money wasn't an issue, what career would you choose? What do you actually want to do? And we talk a lot about impact and helping others and stuff like that. And we try and instill in them that making money isn't the goal. The goal is actually getting through life, leaving some kind of impact and legacy that you can look back and say, you know what, I made a difference to that person's life. Like for me, that's the bigger educator. Yes, money enables that, but money's not the end goal. Like money, I think, is easy to get. And I think once you get through a certain stage, you realize how money isn't the barrier. A lot of it's mindset and actually your focus and goal and stuff. So, projecting forward, I don't know what the kind of world's going to be like, but I don't want to be seeing my children rely on jobs and corporate and government and stuff like that. I want them to have a choice. Live wherever you want, earn the money however you like, and do good for others. And I think the rest of it is for them to fill in.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, in terms of like giving them the freedom to choose, right? The freedom to make a choice independent of necessity, right? Like, and I think it's a double-edged sword to an extent, though, right? It's the idea behind it is that if you give somebody the freedom to make choices independent of kind of Maslow's hierarchy, the base levels of food and shelter, right? That they'll, pursue their true passions, and kind of the net benefit for the world probably is positive if you have a lot of people pursuing things they actually love doing, right? Pursuing their passions, as opposed to just being a cog in the wheel and taking a job for the sake of taking a job. The flip side of that, right, is there a number where, like, it's a universal basic income argument, right? It's like if you take away financial motivation, do people do nothing, or do they just do things that have no benefit to society? And it's a really interesting question, because I don't think there's a universal answer. I think it's dependent on people. It's dependent on social factors, societal factors. Like, there's so many variables. But I thought a lot about that, like with, Quinn now. It's like, when he's 18, 20, like he won't have, if we don't want it to be this way, like he won't have to work, like he wouldn't have to do anything. Like we could set things up that he'd be set, right? But I would never do that, because I think you need to have that motivating factor, right? I think early on in your life, that motivating factor for a lot of people usually is financial. I would say usually, because I think there's people out there that generally don't care about money, no matter how old they are. But I think it's like a thing you evolve to learn. It's you start out young, and your focus is kind of everything you do is based around getting a trade, getting a skill, so you can go get a job, so you can make money, so you can do these things. Then you kind of get older, and you're like, well, that's not really fulfilling, and now I want to go pursue these things. It's a challenging question of how you go about shrinking that window of time, and making people realize when they're younger that like money's not everything, but doing it in a way that still keeps them motivated, because it's hard to, like, money is such a tangible thing that's easy to measure. So because it's easy to measure, it's easy to set goals, it's easy to, like, it's just so much easier to be a motivating factor. Whereas like there's a lot of other things that might motivate you deeply, but it's hard to gauge, measure, and track. So you don't ever know if you're on the right path or if you're achieving things. And if you don't feel like you're achieving stuff, if it's not gamified to an extent, most people stop doing it because they don't feel like they're making progress.
Well,
I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, we made a mistake with our firstborn, where up until probably 4 or 5 years old, he would kind of get anything he wanted. And we did that because obviously it's our first child, and also for my parents, it was their first grandchild. So he got spoiled left, right, center. The slap in the face for me was one day my parents came round, and the first thing he said when he opened the door, I think he was like 4 years old, he goes, "Did you buy me something today?" And that was like, we've gone wrong here, because that's not the first thing you should say to your grandparents. And from that point forward, we took that back, and we said, right, this is a mistake. We shouldn't be buying him everything he wants. He needs to earn it. He needs to use, rewards, points, whatever it is, to get what he wants. And we've continued that for all of the children now. That we always look at a kind of reward-based system if they want anything, and then they also earn. For example, if you do some chores, you get £10. If they want that thing that's £100, then you need to plan ahead. And it also helps them to learn how to save, how to plan. You learn quite quickly which of your children are the savers and which ones just want to spend as soon as they've got it. And you can kind of support them on that as well. And I think a big part of that is, as a parent, you have to teach them money. Like they won't learn that at school, they won't learn that at university, probably won't learn that until they're mid-20s and start earning money and losing it. So I think it's our responsibility to teach them the value of money, how you save, how to invest, how money actually grows and stuff like that, which is what we are doing. And I think, we've even given, I think the elder two have their own like children's debit card, so they get money paid in directly. So if they do chores or they do whatever, they get money for that. And then if they want to buy something, they can. If they want that new pair of trainers or they want that new Nintendo Switch game or whatever it is, go and buy it yourself. But you can earn it. And if you've got £50 in there and you deplete that by buying one game, you're going to have to earn that again. So I think we're trying to get down to that route of, my goal is by the time they're 18 or 20, they have a firm understanding of the value of money, how money is created, how wealth is created and stuff like that. I think that's the biggest thing I can give them. So I'm not here to teach them maths and science and all that kind of stuff, but I am here to at least help them learn from my mistakes, because I've made many mistakes when it comes to money, and all I can hope for is they pick up those lessons and then use that to leverage a better life sooner.
Yeah, and most people do, which is what it's so crazy to me that, like, you think about all the stuff you learn in school, and I don't, I'm just speaking from the American education system. I'm not as familiar with the UK or kind of European education system. I know that a lot of them are kind of superior, but you spend probably a year or 2 years when you're in first, second grade learning things like cursive. You learn all of these skills throughout your your kind of elementary, middle, high school that just don't help you in any capacity in life. Yep. And it's mind-boggling to me that you have so many really basic things that are like obvious to us now because we've had to learn it out of necessity, that like they should be teaching in like 8th grade, like 7th, 8th, 9th grade. They should be teaching how to invest in the stock market, how to save for your retirement, how to manage a checking account, a savings account, how to handle credit, how to use debt, like how to effectively use debt. Like there's just, a lot of politicians, people talk about like all the problems with, our economy, with our society, all the issues facing with poverty, things like this. And a lot of the solution, like I think there's so many more basic solutions. Like I think if you could just teach people, like all kids in every school district across the country, across the world, like, here's how you build wealth. Here's how you start to like compound interest. Like if that concept was explained to everybody, I'm not saying that everyone would be rich, right? Because it's obviously if you don't have any money to invest and you're coming from a poor family, it doesn't really change. But even if you're lower income, you're putting $5 a month, $10 a month into a little savings account. Cause now they have, Robinhood, they have all these apps that are zero interest, zero commission trading. You can do all these things. Like that's such a powerful concept. The idea that if I start investing when I'm in my teens or 20s, I can invest a substantially less amount of money and end up with a lot more than if I start at my 30s, 40s, 50s. And that's unfortunately, like time is such a powerful tool if used effectively, but most people, if they ever learn this, most people don't ever learn this, but if they do learn about compound interest and investing in the stock market and building assets and reinvesting dividends and stuff, like they don't learn that till they're in the late 20s, 30s, maybe 40s. Yeah. And you've lost 20 years of valuable time. It's a frustrating thing because it's like, as entrepreneurs, we always see solutions. Like we're seeing like things that seem obvious. We're like, why? And then we see bureaucracy and red tape. We're like, why can't you just start doing this? Right. It's like, there's just so much red tape. And, I don't know the solution, right? That's like the solution to fixing some of these problems that seems so obvious. And a lot has to do with pure, just like education, reforming education, and not even reforming, but just add a few extra things, right? Like, I don't know in the UK, is it similar over there where there's kind of a lack of that type of education?
Yeah, totally. And I think, if you look at politics and the government, unless someone came in and they said, I'm going to put my neck on the line and I'm going to do this, it's not going to happen. And the problem is politicians are driven by their term in office, their positions and stuff like that. Who's actually going to push something through when they don't see a problem there? That's the thing. So I think it's in Finland or Norway, one of the schools, they don't really have a curriculum until you're about 10 or 11. It's just kind of open explorative learning. So if you want to learn, if you want to spend more time in the arts, that's fine. You go and do that a bit more. If you want to spend more time creating handcrafts and stuff like that. And what they do is they don't inhibit people's natural creative skills, their natural tendency to want to investigate and learn. And then they start introducing concepts of maths and English, but not intensively, because I think that with children, they have their own natural tendencies to be really, really good at something. So like my oldest daughter, she is super creative. And when we give her as many different canvases to play on as she can, so whether it's sequin art or playing with the mushy slime stuff, that's kind of her in her element. But at school, she's driven down the same path as my son, who's more left brain, and he wants to analyze and discover and stuff like that. So you've got two very different minds. My daughter would probably be more driven by impact and people and community and things like that, whereas my son would be more driven by research and findings and scientists. He, for example, I think would make a super media buyer, KPIs, numbers, all that kind of stuff. Whereas my daughter would make a really good designer and art worker and stuff like that. FYI, who knows, maybe they'll all work with us in the same business. But there's different people that have different paths. And when I look at my daughter, I don't think she's as interested in learning about investment as my son. So I think there's a balance to be had to allow children to find their path, but then you to just guide them, and I think at their pace. So it's kind of like, child-led kind of development and kind of figuring out how to use their strengths and amplify what they've got with the knowledge you can share, and then trying to balance out. Because I know if I went into talk about numbers and finances with my daughter, she'd just switch off because it's not really her thing. So I think there is, and a teacher would never really be able to do that because you've got a class of 25 to 30 people. It's hard. So I think, schools, it is difficult for schools. And I think this is where parents can play a big part in helping to nurture their kids like no one else can.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So because you had some interesting stuff you shared before we turned on the recording there. Let's transition that from your kids to your employees, right? So a pretty seamless transition from managing kids to managing people there, and sometimes it can feel like the exact same work you're doing for both of them. So you had you hit on this a little bit, so I want you to share deeper, like an issue with an employee, right? And I can share a story once you share this too about something we had that was very similar. Like, share that challenge that you had, how it impacted you, and like what changes you've made because of that.
Yeah. So we hired our first kind of dedicated salesperson early 2020. Previously, because we had so many leads coming through the agency, and I did obviously the brand work, the leads would almost, and I'm sure you had this, they're already decided they want to work with you. So it's just kind of deciding price and whether it's a good fit and stuff like that. So we never really took it seriously in terms of let's get a proper salesperson in place. But we wanted to grow both the agency and the training services in a different way. So we thought, let's bring someone with sales experience. And we happened to find someone that run an agency before, knew Facebook ads, and was a really good salesperson. So it was like a no-brainer. Mistake number one, I didn't properly interview this person because it was a person I knew through circles and Facebook groups and all that kind of stuff. So mistake number one was not properly vetting them and asking for references. Mistake number two, I brought this person in and gave them total control because I trusted that person. Now, what happened is we had processes. So, for example, when a client or prospect comes into the agency, we had a process to vet the client first of all, so that you would then pass it to the delivery team to accept or reject the client, because there's a difference between how the salesperson sees this client and how the delivery team, the client services, see the client. This person overrode that because he said, look, I know how to run ads, so I know what a good client looks like. All right, fine, we went with that. And then there were, the long and short throughout the year was that the salesperson we brought in, who, was on commission, as every salesperson is, was working with creating bigger and bigger contracts. So like, 3-month contracts and big 5-figure investments for clients. And I was like, yeah, that looks great. If the client's happy with it and we can deliver, that's perfect. What I didn't realize was the level of manipulation that was going on by that salesperson to prospects, and therefore what was being sold wasn't necessarily what we were delivering. And what we were being sold internally, what the client needed was very, very different from what the client needed. And it took us probably 6 months to realize what was going on, because we started to get clients in that, if you go back to 2019, we spent a lot of time figuring out our ideal avatar, because the better the client fits your avatar, the better you get them results. It's not rocket science. And when we worked through what our ideal avatar was, and therefore our success rate with clients was super high, all of a sudden we're struggling. And we're working with clients that weren't happy, we weren't happy, our media buyers weren't happy, and everything started to unravel. And at the same time, where I had kind of taken a step back and given this person a lot of control, I started to delve a bit deeper. And actually, it was one person that reached out, and he said, "Look, I followed you online. I had a call with your salesperson. I don't think he reflects you as a person and what I think your business stands for." I was like, "What happened?" And he goes, "Yeah, it was really pushy and all this kind of stuff." So I listened into the call, and before that, I said to the salesperson, "Look, this person's reached out. What do you think? Is what happened?" He goes, "Oh, it was just an a-hole client, and it wasn't a good fit for us." So I had to look at the call recording. The client was not an a-hole. The client was quite respectable and asked some good questions. It's the first time I properly saw the salesperson being an a-hole and pressuring this person into sales. And I don't believe in those kind of tactics. It's not who we are. And then I started to delve deeper into other calls and stuff. And I think, we started to unravel a lot of it. And in the end, we went forward to some customers, and we ended up offering refunds, offering to work for free, because reputation for me is bigger than revenue and profit. So we spent probably October to December, end of 2020, fixing those relationships, trying to fix those accounts, working for free. I got sucked back into helping with the analysis and accounts and stuff. And bear in mind, I spent 2019 making myself redundant from the agency. So building a team, building a process. But you know what? When the fires are there, the buck stops with you as an owner. And you can either try and get your team to support, or you just get stuck in. And I got stuck in and analyzing ad accounts and all that kind of stuff. It was a complete nightmare. And we launched our agency in 2017. End of 2020, the last 2 months were the first time we were not profitable. And that's purely because we had to make refunds and we didn't charge customers. And at the end of it, we lost people in the team through burnout. We obviously fired the salesperson. I had to let go of our e-commerce store and some of our info products kind of business that we were focusing on just to help these clients. And we're not getting paid for this. But at the same time, morally, what they'd been through was wrong. And so we had to recover. We had to find a way to at least get them to a good state. I think there were maybe 2 clients that we just couldn't get back. We couldn't get their performance back, because if you go back 3-4 months, they should never have come in to us as a client, because they didn't have a good funnel. They didn't really have a product that was good enough to be run off Facebook ads. And we would have gone back and said, "Look, here's the realistic feedback. We can work with you on your funnel, on your product, on your proposition before you start running ads and before you start scaling up." But what our salesperson had said is, yeah, you're ready to scale. We'll get our team to run ads, and we can take you from 10K a month to 100K a month in about 4 to 5 weeks. No, you can't, because any business that comes to you, if they don't have a good product, they don't have a good offer, they don't know their audience, don't have a good funnel, you're going to have to fix those things first. And that's something which we've been really good at. But when you bypass that and you promise the customer that you're going to hit that target in that date, the customer will hold you to that. And that was a big problem for us. And it's reputation control at that point and managing the damage. At the end of it, we ended up moving a number of clients on. Our team size shrunk, and we just literally took a massive step back and said, how did this go wrong? How do we avoid it going forward? And what do we do? And we started January this year far stronger, and we have a better team, better processes. Our revenues are back up now to where they should be, and we're better for it. But that was a really, really expensive mistake, and it even got me thinking, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to be serving clients and running an agency? Because when things go wrong, it drains you emotionally. It is really difficult, especially when you care about your clients' results and things like that. It does drag you down. And for us, for example, we have the agency, so we serve clients. We have the training, so we train people, and then we have our own e-com stores on the side, just testing and doing things like that. But when these kind of fires kick off, you can't be spread across everything. You need to take a call on where your focus is. And not only did we lose money in the revenue in the agency, we also probably lost 3 months of sales on the info product because I'm no longer there promoting and pushing. And you know how it is, you're the face of the training, you have to be there. And I wasn't. So you end up losing ground and losing sales. But you know, sometimes you have to, unfortunately, in business, take those decisions to take 1 or 2 big steps back. And you know, we're in a better place, but certainly that was a real tough learning for us.
Has it made you rethink the agency model at all? And when I say agency model, I mean specifically the agency model that goes beyond hot inbound leads, because that's what we realized was like we had for a long time been able to build a kind of ultra premium, like high cost agency because we got so much inbound leads from info and from speaking. And then you get to a point where it's like, if you want to continue to grow, you need to start doing outbound, you start having salespeople, right? And that adds a whole nother layer of complexity, specifically because of what you said, which is it's still to an extent is you, right? Even if you're no longer involved day to day, a lot of people still are going to tie those two things together. So the more you hire, the more you grow it, the harder it is to quality control, make sure you're getting people that reflect you as an individual. So I'm curious, like, you know, if that's something where it's like, hey, we fixed it, we have solutions, we still want to grow it really big, or if it's like, hey, we're kind of content, we realize now maybe it's good to keep it the smaller premium and then go on info and other avenues.
Yeah, so it's a really good point because I've always looked at kind of what's the purpose of the agency, what's the end game? Is it to grow a big agency and keep on growing? Is it to acquire and grow by acquisition? Is it to merge? Is it to sell? I don't know. I don't know what the agency might look like in 2-3 years' time. When I started the agency, we were a completely remote team, so no office. And I had some conversations with other agencies, and I don't think we'd probably invest because we want to find businesses with office locations and physical staff in the office. Now 2020 comes and COVID and remote working is a normal thing. Now people are looking for agencies to expand globally with global footprints and stuff, which is where we fall in. So we've had conversations with a couple of agencies that talk about buying us out. I don't want to sell right now, but that got me thinking differently about what if we do end up selling? I can't sell the agency with my personal brand attached to it because that's not going to be valuable. So that's a definite and conscious part of our planning for end of last year and this year is how do we detach ourselves to an extent to all those hot leads and create the reputation for the agency. So I'll give you an example. We're just about to redesign our agency landing, our website. We haven't touched it much since 2017. It was hacked together on WordPress. It looks really poor. I guarantee if someone lands on that agency site of ours and they don't know me, they're going to click away because it looks amateur, and it is. And this is why the hot leads are hot leads. They know who I am, regardless of what our website looks like. They come in because they know who I am. We have to change that because that's not how you can grow a business. So we're definitely moving down that route, which is we are going to be sharing more case studies, more promotional material, going for more awards as an agency, and changing that whole inbound experience, or actually outbounding, so that we can actually attract leads outside of where I am personally as well, so that we have the choice going forward, whether we sell the agency, whether we keep it. I would love to kind of merge and acquire. I love the whole aspect of kind of growth by bolting on specialities from other areas and stuff like that. But who knows? I'm not going to say that I know what the path looks like. Even right now, I had a comment. In fact, the iOS video we were doing back in December, someone said, you're a Facebook ads agency. How are you going to cope? And I said, we're not a Facebook ads agency. We specialize in Facebook, but we also do other parts of the marketing. Problem is, that's how a lot of the markets see us. And we have a brand positioning still to do to say, you know what, we're performance marketers. We can make any platform work. Yes, we specialize in Facebook. And that comes through, what's the definition of a brand is how people talk about your brand when you're not there. What are they talking to you, their friends and their contacts about what that brand is? I can tell you that my brand is XYZ or the agency's brand is XYZ, but it's what the public see and what they think. And that's something we need to work on, because I've never really taken the agency brand seriously, because it's always pivoted off my personal brand. But that's definitely something we're exploring now.
Yeah, it's a challenging place to be if it wasn't the plan to, like, if you had a different plan, right? So if your plans changed or your goals changed, it's tough because I know people that are, in the info space and they know it's not really exitable, but they're
That's right.
have, built it to 10, 15, 20 million a year and it's highly profitable, and that's
Yeah,
fine. Like you can make a lot of money that way. But it's, once your name's attached to something at a certain level, it does
that's right.
become really hard. But there are people that have been able to make it work, right? So like, I think Ezra's done a really, really great job and really smart move of bringing in Molly
That's
and
right.
transitioning himself out, bringing in another, brilliant marketer to take over all the
Mm,
training because she's passionate about it. He no longer wants to really do it. So there's definitely plays and kind of pivots there. But it gets harder and harder the more successful you are. So the bigger you
mm,
become, the bigger your brand becomes, the harder it is to like remove yourself from that without having a really negative impact on the current state of the business.
that's right.
For us, that was a kind of something we realized about like a year and a half ago, and started making changes and started saying, let's just, like, we'll still do this stuff because it's fun, but like, let's
Mm,
start just in the background, building up ecom properties and building up like assets.
yeah,
They don't, nobody cares. Like when we're listing one of them for sale now, like nobody cares that I'm associated with it, right? It's
yeah,
irrelevant. It'll have no impact on the valuation of the company. And
yeah.
that's a great place to be, especially if you want to, spend less time working and be able to kind of detach and remove yourself and try other things. So I guess like, let's, let's wrap it here with the thought of like, what are you, so you said, hey, we're not a Facebook ad agency, we're performance marketers. Like, what are you most optimistic about? So let's say 2021, 2022, what has got you most excited? If you, hey, this is the trend, this is the thing that we're going to be doing, or we're going to look into doing, that I'm just really pumped about.
Sure. So I think one of the things that iOS 14 is forcing marketers to think about is cross-channel tracking and attribution, and actually thinking a bit broader when it comes to finding your prospects. So whether you're in e-com or info, whether your ideal market is on Facebook or not, that's kind of neither here or there. You need to go and find them and you need to market to them. And I think a lot of what I'm seeing, thankfully, is people going back to realizing what's important about marketing, not the platform. So, the communications, the copy, the creative, and things like that. It's forcing a lot of the hackers that would kind of duplicate ad sets and do all these kind of fancy things to trick the algorithm to think again, because if you don't have all of that amazing data on a platform like Facebook, you're going to be taken down a few pegs. And if you're not good at marketing and propositions, then you're going to struggle. And that's the thing that I've always enjoyed about online marketing, is the challenge of taking someone from where your product is and where their needs are, and walking them across that bridge. So here's a product, here's why we think it's relevant, it solves a problem, it creates a new opportunity, and we're going to handhold you through that funnel, and then we're going to convince you to buy. That's the thing I love. I'm not the best person on Facebook ads. I don't know it as well as many people out there, the whole technical platform, but I know enough to make it work. And that comes through marketing. And I think the big opportunity for people is to get really, really better at the non-platform stuff. Because once you get that done, it doesn't matter if you're on Snapchat, you're on Pinterest, you're on Facebook, you're on TikTok, soon Clubhouse, wherever you're advertising, humans don't change. So if you look at 100 years ago, and people that came up such as Ogilvy and Hopkins and all the amazing marketers throughout that period, and probably centuries before that as well, they've communicated in the same way we're doing it now. The only thing that's changed is the platform. So back then it was print and newspapers and radio and TV. Now it's digital. Who knows, in 10 years' time, it'll be virtual reality and everything else that comes up. And you adapt. It doesn't matter if Facebook's here in 5, 10 years' time. You adapt, you move on, you get really good at advertising, and you can sell to anyone anywhere. And I think that's where I see the trend going, is to get better at marketing, get better at relying less on Facebook's magic. Because if you go back to a year, you could go broad audiences, not do too much with your offer, and you could still get sales in. That's going to be challenged because Facebook may or probably won't have all that data that it used to have. So you're going to have to work a bit harder. Think about your funnel. Is it straight to your product page? Do you need an advertorial? Do you do lead gen and take them through an email funnel? I think it's a good thing that people are going to have to think harder. I think it's a good thing also that the people that relied on hacking are going to be finding it harder and actually leveling the playing field for the kind of mum and pop store, for example, where they really get their product and their audience and they've got a good offer, but they struggled against the technicalities of Facebook marketing. Well, actually, if you level that out and it's not as complicated as it maybe was before in terms of you could hack it and make it work, I think that's going to be quite interesting. So I think opportunities are going to be to think broader. We've always said, don't just rely on one platform. I think now a lot of people are waking up to that. And just going back to what is good marketing? How did Ogilvy make it work 50, 60 years ago? How do his teachings actually still work? Power of copy, the power of storytelling, all that kind of stuff, it still works. It will still work in 100 years' time. So getting good at that, I think, is going to be crucial.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's a great kind of bow to wrap on our episode here, is this move from being a platform specialist and be able to be very successful that way to instead focusing on becoming somewhat of a generalist, but being really good at the concepts that matter the most. And just fundamental principles of advertising and marketing and persuasion. Because if you can do those things, like you said, it's totally, the channel is irrelevant. And these changes, that Apple is kind of forcing the industry into are irrelevant, right? I think most of my friends that are great just marketers and that have businesses built around that really aren't complaining. Like that group of people that I talk to, obviously it's, you got to make some changes and it's not like nothing's changing, but they're not freaking out, right? I see in a lot of the groups that we own and run or are part of, like every day I see people just freaking out as if it's like the internet's being turned off, right? And it's just, if your business is such that this change is going to be a significant threat to the success and longevity of your business, then it's not Apple's fault. It's your fault, right? I hate to say it that way, but Apple is the one that kind of pulled the plug on you. But it was bound to happen. If it happened a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if you're hyper dependent on a singular platform to drive your business, it's it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. So where can people learn more about what you have going on, learn more about programs you got going on? You have great groups, you have great courses, great trainings, everything that I highly recommend. It's the best place for people to go check that out.
Cool. DepeshMandalia.com. I think everything is there. And yeah, I think my big focus this year is to get people to understand the basics of marketing. I think, you can, and this is something that it took me many years to realize, because I started off as a performance marketer, all about the KPIs and numbers, because it was easy to track. Then I understood the power of brand marketing, of avatars, copy, and constructing stories and stuff like that. So that's really my pitch is, when I train people up, it's on becoming a balance between brand marketing and performance marketing. So if I can help, I'd love to.
Love it, Depesh. I really appreciate it, brother. It's always great to chat with you. Send my best to Shalina. I know Larissa sends her love as well. And I can't wait till the pandemic's over and the next trip we get to take. Hopefully 100%. Somewhere fun and exotic that we can hang out and relax again.
Absolutely. Cheers, Max. And
Thanks, man.
Pleasure being here again, and hopefully see you guys soon.
We'll see everyone soon. Thanks, everyone.
Cool. Nice one. Cheers.